You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Knightline is brought to you by the Dever team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
All right, hello Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 271 from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me as always,
Roger Phipps, and on this week's show, the cows get tipped. We're bowling, baby. DG says goodbye. Your questions in Ask Knightline, the Tijuana Flats hot take of the week, and news and notes.
All righty. Well, a win over the dreaded Bulls, the Cows, whatever we want to call them. That's good that is over with and done. We won, and we are finally over the overall winners in that. In the overall series that we've been playing with them, we are one up over them. I think it's, 7-6 or something like that. They
Correct.
have won 6. We have won 7 now. So I think that's the most important take out of that. Otherwise, there are lots of things to talk about. We can talk about that. We have Brandon Helwig, which is a really long interview. We normally never go this long with a guest, but obviously it's Brandon Helwig, so it's all good. We're going to talk to him for... It's about 55 minutes or so. It's a long interview. So we've talked about lots of stuff, everything from the DG situation. If you haven't heard by now, you're under a rock. I think I started my first episode and I said that about it was when Blake Bortles got drafted. I think that was my very first episode, and I said if you haven't heard that Blake Bortles was drafted, in the NFL draft, you've probably been living under a rock. So I'm saying that again on the 271st first episode. I don't think I've said it again since then. But unless you're living under a rock, you probably know that Dylan Gabriel has hit the transfer portal. And, there are very varied views and opinions on that. And we will get a lot more into that, obviously, coming up here in Ask Knightline. So, with no further ado, Ask Knightline. Ask Knightline is brought to you by Chad Barr Law. Chad is a UCF alumnus and diehard Knights fan. Chad Barr Law handles auto accident, slip and fall, and personal injury cases. Call Chad today at 407-599-9036 for a free consultation. That's 407-599-9036. Armor up and call Chad Barr Law today. All right, lots of questions in Ask Knightline this week. Appreciate that. It has been a little bit of a crazy roller coaster ride for UCF the last week. Not only UCF, really, but all of college football. Kind of crazy news with Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma to go to USC, and then now Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU. I think that this stuff, the coaching carousel stuff, is fascinating in my opinion. Anyway, I don't think any of the Ask Knightline questions have anything to do with that. I think they are mostly about UCF. I haven't read all of them yet, but we shall see. There might be a surprise in here. Knight RN95 says, what type of quarterback is Thomas Castellanos? Is he a better fit in a Gus Malzahn offense than Mikey Keene? Okay, first of all, I'm not sure that Mikey Keene is not a good fit at all in the Gus Malzahn offense. I think Mikey Keene fits pretty well, to be honest with you. I think Thomas Castanelis runs a little bit more, maybe, but Mikey Keene ran a little bit more in high school as well. So I'm under the assumption that Gus did not want him to run around out there a lot, but maybe, opened it up a couple of times where he could. I think that Mikey Keene really was more trying to learn the passing aspect of the offense more than trying to do other things out there. I think that was his focus. Obviously, the one time, he really took off and obviously has wheels and obviously can extend plays and stuff like that. But I don't think that was his main focus. So I think that he's a pretty good fit, to be honest with you. And we normally see the quarterbacks, especially from their freshman to sophomore season, in the offseason, there's a big jump in their ability to understand the offense and play in the offense. And the game, Mikey Keene talked about it a bunch of times, starting to slow down for him, and which is a huge thing in when you change levels, coming from high school football to college football, from college football to pro football. The speed differences are massive. And I think that took a little while for Mikey Keene. It takes a little while for anybody. Mikey Keene just had to, as an 18-year-old kid, this is the other thing that we really need to remember. He is extremely young. He came out of high school early to come to UCF. He should be playing his senior season in high school at this point. So, extremely young. But I expect him to make a huge jump. Now, could it be someone else besides him, be the starting quarterback next year? Abso-freaking-lutely, it could be. So we don't even know. We have no idea who is going to be the starting quarterback. Obviously, he's got a little bit of up on the next guy because he knows the playbook and knows what Gus expects, and he's been in the offense for almost the entire year. So I think he did a really good job on the end of it. The last 6 games, I think that he of his season, I think did really well in most aspects. You saw him progressively get better. If you didn't, you're looking through gold-colored glasses or something. If you didn't see him get better, because he definitely got better. He controlled the interceptions and just made much smarter decisions. So I think people need to give him, that for sure. That just needs to be acknowledged that he got a lot better. So, Roger, you can take this one. You probably know a little bit more about I can't even say his name, to be honest.
Thomas Castellanos.
Castellanos. Yeah, I'm tired.
No, that's all good, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead. Listen. Thomas Castellanos is a true dual threat quarterback. Everything that Gus Malzahn has done and will continue to do is based off of a modified version of the triple option attack. Thomas Castellanos is or has been, based on the film that I've seen. And again, this is high school film. This is not college football, folks. There is a distinction there. I think Andrew can speak to that better than I can. But, at the end of the day, he is a true dual threat quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean that Mikey Keene is not either, because he was in his role in high school in Arizona. He was one of the winningest, quarterbacks in Arizona, and he played at a high school that played nationally. So he did not just play the kids that were in Arizona. He played the kids that were all over the country and was successful. Now, Mikey Keene in general, I'd like to give some credence to what Andrew said, because at the end of the day, he took a very bad situation. He's an 18-year-old kid who should have been going to prom, but instead chose to focus on football, enrolled early, had the grades to do that, and he took us to an 8-4 season thus far. He did that by not making too many mistakes. Towards the latter part of the season, unfortunately, most of the defenses that you were seeing were keying on the fact that our running game was hurt because we were obviously missing some key pieces there. And, that put him at a disadvantage. Yes, the last or most recent example against the Cows wasn't his best performance. But at the end of the day, he protected the ball, unlike Timmy McClain. And that's what, propelled us to the win. And that's why we were 8-4. So at the end of the day, you take over from a prolific quarterback like, Dylan Gabriel. You are 18 years old. You're seeing disguised blitzes. You're seeing defenses that are quote unquote exotic because defensive coordinators are assuming because you're 18 years old that you can't read the defenses, and you are relatively successful. Folks, I'm just going to put this caveat on the end of it. Mikey Keene did something that a lot of George O'Leary teams with more experienced QBs did not. He went 8-4 thus far. We're going to a bowl game. If you remember way back when I said after Dylan went down, it would be 9-3 or 8-4. Well, he's done that. So can he run the offense? Yes. Is Thomas Castellanos a better option? We have no idea. Mikey Keene was a prolific quarterback in his own right at Arizona as a dual threat quarterback. Gus plays a dual threat quarterback. That's his preference. And to Andrew's point, most quarterbacks make their biggest jump from their freshman to their sophomore year. So do we see that with Mikey Keene? We don't know. That's why we're not coaches. Do we see that with Thomas Castellanos? We don't know. Who is the person that we're going to go after with the transfer portal, knowing now that DG is not going to be a part of this team next year? We don't know. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is today, and Mikey Keene has done a fairly good job and has given us an 8-4 record. So that's something that we should all be proud of. And I'm hoping, again, the better competition, the better for UCF. And at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to field the best quarterback possible. If that's Mikey Keene, we'll see next spring. If that's Thomas Castellanos, we'll see that next spring. But at the end of the day, he's done a good job, and he will take us into the bowl game. So we're riding with Mikey Keene, at least for this season, till the end.
Okay. All right, moving along. Our good friend Tony Cummings at UCF 365 drops 5 questions this time. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. I mean, most of them we're gonna lump into pretty much one anyway, because we're going to talk about all these things. We have, in a way, talked about all these things with Brandon. So, number one, his question: any insight into why DG left UCF? There is insight into why DG left UCF, and there are varied opinions on this, but there are also facts. If you noticed, especially if you watched Twitter over the season, DG did not post a lot of anything, honestly, especially after NIL, about UCF football. He posted only things about his brand on his website on his Twitter, on his Instagram, on everything. The writing was on the wall, kind of, if you now in hindsight about that. I think obviously that he wants to play in an offense where he can look really good, and an offense that is not as run oriented. Although his mom posted a bunch of stuff in the dungeon. I recommend going to the dungeon and paying the $99 even for Brandon's explanation of all these things. If you don't know what the dungeon is, UCFsports.com, you pay to be on that. You can pay by the month or you can pay by the year. Brandon knows a lot about things behind the scenes, and he knows probably more on this situation than anybody else does, and posted a very long synopsis of the entire season and everything with him. So, I'm not going to say everything that is in that article, but, I personally think that DG was more of a me guy than a we guy. And that's pretty much what it's come down to. And, he wants to do what's best for him, so we'll let him go and do what's best for him. And we will move on, like we have with everybody else that's ever gone in the transfer portal. I do know that Dylan Gabriel, had some issues in big games. I'm good with it personally. I'm good with moving on without him. You have another DG question in here. I'm going to skip to number 3. What do I do with my DG merchandise that I never want to wear again? I suggest you do with it whatever you want to. If it was me, I have a beautiful fire pit. That anybody is welcome to send me their stuff. No, I'm not the first person that suggested this. Or you can send it back to him and ask for a refund. That's what I would do, to be honest with you. Send it back to him so he has to deal with handling all of it. Obviously I don't know. This is exactly why I spoke against the name, image, likeness stuff from the beginning. And I kind of went with it for a while, and then I kind of was off of it again, and I kind of went with it. I was back and forth a little bit, but this is exactly the reason why, one of the reasons why, that I didn't want this stuff to happen anyway. Because you're going to have guys, DG, that are me guys instead of we guys. When I played college football, when a lot of the rest of us played college football, it was about your team. And maybe it was about you trying to get to the next level of the NFL. But that was it. It wasn't about anything else. And I think that this brings into college football a lot more. This isn't the last time you're going to see this, guys. This is maybe the first time you've seen it with UCF, but it is not the last time. Our hearts are going to be broken by other players because they want to go to a school with more eyes on them, I guess, in a system that they work better in, I guess. I was trying to go back to the DG question of, his mother said something about run versus pass. We only ran 61 more times than we passed, by the way. So if that is that big of a deal for a quarterback, he wants to throw for every single throw, I guess, and he wants it to be completely even or something and have it completely balanced, or a throw-heavy offense instead of a run-heavy offense. This isn't the offense for him, I guess. So fine. Go. See ya. Don't let the door hit you. Yeah, I'd get rid of that merchandise one way or another, personally. I didn't think I would never wear any of that stuff anyway, to be honest with you. I mean, it looked like it was designed by a third grader. So,
wow.
Well, it's true. I mean, did you see it? It was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can put a DG on something. Anybody can make a striped freaking shirt. It's not anything special. But I mean, it seems like I don't know. Just it is what it is. So back to number 2. Where do you think UCF goes bowling? I'll let you say whatever you want to say in that, Roger. What do you say to number 3 there? What do you suggest that he does with his merchandise?
Well, this was actually pretty interesting because I had a Twitter conversation with someone about this. Look, at the end of the day, my take on this is DG is doing what's best for Dylan Gabriel, right? And if he feels that that's what's right for him, whether that's his parents telling him that, or whether it's, youth or whatever, we bought that swag, for lack of a better term.
Because he played for UCF.
Exactly.
We would have never bought it otherwise.
Exactly.
I didn't buy any of it, and I would never, but I decided to I wanted to point that out, though. That, we bought it because he played for UCF, not because he's Dylan Gabriel.
I think you illustrated my point perfectly, right? Sorry. So, no. Don't be sorry. You illustrated my point better probably than I could. At the end of the day, what it boils down to is we have an individual who is taking advantage, for lack of a better term, of his opportunity to monetize his fame, right? And we know that that's an issue.
Why is he famous?
Because of UCF.
Exactly.
And that was, I don't know if you remember our conversations about NIL before, but my position on that was, listen, you're famous because of the platform that you're provided. Had you not been provided that opportunity, had you not had your teammates around you that allowed you to have wins, had you not been provided the opportunity to play at a school that, was on ESPN, you would not have been given the opportunity to monetize your brand. And at the end of the day, he feels like he can monetize his brand elsewhere. As a business person, I don't necessarily blame him for that, but college football is not about business per se.
It is
for the
now.
fan.
It
for
is
the
now.
fan.
Not for the fan, but it is for the players now.
You're right. So there's a difference between the players and the fans, right? So the fans have gone to the university in question, and in this case, it's UCF. We have a lot of passion around that, and that's what provides value to that brand that individual is selling, right? In this case, Dylan Gabriel. That also means it's a very personal connection with the university. It's why we donate. It's why we show up. It's why we scream at the top of our lungs on a third down. And at the end of the day, it's a very personal decision on what you do with the branded, because at the end of the day, it's not about Dylan Gabriel. It's about his brand and how you connect with it. So if he's leaving and he's choosing to leave, and whatever your emotional response to that is, if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're, you have every right to feel that way. And if you choose to, I don't know, it's 57 degrees here right now in the Panhandle, and decide to have a bonfire and include some DG socks, that's up to you, right? But at the end of the day, college football is not the NFL. And college football, and
it's starting to be, though. It's starting to be. It
is.
And these kids need to understand, when they're hawking their merchandise to people that are fans of the program that they belong to, and then they decide to do this, they've got to pay the consequences. Businesses pay consequences all the time for things that they do, right? So college athletes now are a business as far as I'm concerned. Some of them, not all of them. There's some guys that don't even participate in the NIL, but if you do, and you turn on your fan base and you quit their team or whatever, you have to expect that people that have paid money for your merchandise and now that are upset, you've got to understand that it's not the same anymore. When you've done, you've put yourself out there, before, if you were to rag on a player for doing this, maybe say, bad idea, dude, good luck, but now it's a little different. And the line has been drawn when it comes down to business now. Not only are we upset, I'm sure his sponsors are upset. I'm sure his sponsors are upset. There's people that were involved in UCF. There's also sponsors of him that are sponsors of UCF. The entire thing. I guarantee you they are not happy. And I guarantee you that some of those endorsements and things that he got while he was at UCF, because he was at UCF, will be going away. So he's going to have to deal with that. He's the one that really needs to be an adult here and deal with that. I could care less. It's the next man up, and it's going to be exciting as hell to talk about who the next guy is. We're going to be talking about who the next guy is for the next few months. You know what I'm saying? It gives us something to talk about. I'm not going to talk about this DG thing for very long, probably this show, and that's going to be about it, and we're going to move on without him. And it's all good. It bugs me that people bought his stuff, and I'm just so glad that I didn't buy into any of that stuff. I'm so glad. It's a waste of money if players can just come and go and do whatever they want. If a player can, during your biggest rivalry game that is perfectly healthy to play on the sideline and tells the coaches or whoever that he's not going to play, that already made his mind up about transferring, probably way earlier in the season, probably when the injury happened, it was pretty much a done deal. That's kind of crappy, in my opinion. And if, going back to look at the way KZ helped not only Dylan Gabriel, but Daryl Mack after KZ got hurt. I've heard this a couple of times in the last, couple of days, I guess, about how McKenzie, laying in a hospital bed, was on the phone on FaceTime or whatever, during a game or whatever, with Daryl Mack and giving him pointers and helping him through the game on the sideline. Have you watched the sideline lately? Did you see DG interact with Mikey Keene very much? I love to watch the sideline. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to watch the stuff that's going on the sideline, where people are. KZ was there all the time. He was the very first person that DG would talk to when he came off the field. It has not been that way for Mikey Keene. There's rumors out there about some other stuff that happened, but that's just something that I saw with my own eyes. He was not supportive nearly like KZ supported him. And there's KZ and DG issues out there as well. But I'll let you get those on your own, because I'm not gonna start not gonna get into that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I'm 100% good with DG going wherever he wants to. So that will be all I have to say really about that.
Well, you said a lot. And, I don't think you said anything that anybody else
I'm over it.
thinking.
Yeah, I'm over it. It's all good. We will continue being UCF. We will continue to go to the Big 12. We will continue to have great recruiting classes, and it's all up from here. It's nothing but up from here. You know what I'm saying? So good luck. I don't wish any harm or any bad stuff to DG, but just good luck and have fun. We'll, I'm sure, see, maybe, I don't know, we'll probably see him play at some point, on TV or something. I'm not going to go looking for it, but anyway, number 4 on, we're only into, this is...
Well, let me say this about that. One thing, one word that I could take everything that you said and put it into is character, right? And the character of the individual. The reason we had the connection that we did and continue to have with KZ is
the character is not even close between the two. Like, KZ's character is like, I mean, even the way he bowed out of the entire thing, You know what I'm saying? We love KZ because he's KZ. This is a completely different situation, though. He didn't quit on his team. I think Dylan Gabriel quit on his team, period. He quit. You go to a university and you love the university, or you probably shouldn't be there. So obviously, if he doesn't love the university, he shouldn't be here. If you're not going to play in your rivalry game and you're perfectly able to, when you know that it's the biggest rivalry game of the season and you could come back, but because you didn't want to, use your year or whatever, if he would have played one more down, that would have been his year, right? He would have played in 4 games. So he wouldn't have had that year. So he selfishly sat on the sideline and this is a guy that people made the captain, the captain of the team. You're the captain of the team, and you sit on the sideline during your rivalry game when you're perfectly able to play. That's crap.
I love to hear you say that, because what I heard you just say, right, and this is from the outside looking in, and that's tough for me because I've been a UCF fan for a very long time. I went to the university and I support the university. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to, like you said, the difference, and I know we don't like to compare KZ to people here on this podcast. We've said it numerous times. But at the end of the day, you look how KZ handled his situation. You look how DG handled his situation. I'm not necessarily faulting DG for making a business decision, but it's a business decision, and that's the difference between college football and NFL. And what's happened is that you've seen college football start to merge or morph.
Yeah, it's turning into the fucking NFL. Sorry,
exactly.
I just totally cussed, and I apologize.
That's okay.
It's turning into the NFL, and this is exactly why I didn't want all this stuff to happen. This is exactly why. I wanted people to play for the love of their school and nothing more. The love of the game and the love of their school. That's what it should be about. That's what college football was about until the NIL was signed. It was about nothing more than that. Yes, it was about, doing good for yourself so you could get to the next level. But that was the only thing that there was, besides the love of your school and the love of the game. And now it's not. It sucks. I personally think I'm not going to say it's totally ruined college football, but it's a different game now. So
I love
it is what it is.
So,
can we go
let
on
me
to
say this
question
about
4,
that.
or are you still going here?
No. I'm just going to say this about that, and this is going to be very brief. What I'm going to say is, I appreciate how you articulated that, because I think you articulated my point without me saying it. I think that you. No. I'm serious.
I'm trying
about
not
that.
to sound too pissed off, but I'm pissed off.
No.
I'm trying
but
not
that's
to be.
what college football is
I'm
about.
trying
It's about
not to be like a jerk about it, but I'm mad. I am mad.
And it's okay to be mad. And that was my point on Twitter when I was saying that, is don't tell me how to feel, right? Because college football is about how you feel about your university, the one that you graduated from.
Well, I didn't even graduate from here, but I love UCF. No. I mean, obviously.
But okay, let's use Kansas. Okay, so that's the university.
You really want to bring that up?
Yes, I do.
We're getting better.
Because no. But let me put it to you this way: you've told the story numerous times of how how you earned a role on the Kansas football team as a starter, right?
Well, not
you
as a
knocked
starter,
out a receiver.
I was a walk-on, but.
But you
I didn't
went
start.
from a walk.
I didn't start games. I went into games. I never started.
So you went into games. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, you were in practice. You knocked out a starting wide receiver, and your coach came over and yelled at you, and then he secretly respected you, right? But at the end of the day, you played at Kansas because you were from Kansas.
Yeah.
Right? at the end of the day.
And I never wanted to play anywhere else. That was that was my hometown team. Just like UCF is Orlando's hometown team. That was my hometown team from the time I was a little kid. The only other school that I would have ever even thought about playing, and I've said this before, was SMU, because I was a huge SMU fan back in the day as well because of Eric Dickerson.
And
back
because
in those
he got paid
days.
$500,000.
Well,
I'm sure that would have helped
Whatever.
too.
That was, I didn't even, as a kid, you don't really think about things like that. You don't even know about things like that until that comes out. But I was a huge fan of that program because of just the way that it was. And then I found out, years later that when I was able to comprehend what actually happened, that it was a huge
But at the end of the
scam.
day, is this not the reverse of that? Right? Because SMU got the death penalty in college football for what?
For paying their players.
Exactly. What
And now
are we
we're
doing with NIL?
Yeah, now we're paying freaking everybody. So,
And it's legal.
Oh, yes, but
No, but I'm saying this. Listen, I know I'm being devil's advocate here, but at the end of the day, Eric Dickerson played for SMU because SMU paid him $500,000 in the 80s, which realistically speaking, today's dollars is probably $2 or $3 million.
yeah, but
right.
This is the thing: kids have always been being paid to play college football. You just didn't hear about it, and it wasn't legal. It's always
100%.
It's been happening the entire time. There are programs, and I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not going to go there, but it happens in almost every program. I'll just say that. It has always happened in almost every program. There's always a couple of people that are getting
whether
something
it's White
on the
Castle
back end.
bags or McDonald's bags or In-N-Out Burger bags. At
Almost
the end of the day,
every program. I will just say that, if not all
Yes.
programs. So,
and at the end of the day, look, what it boils down to is this. We have a personal investment in KZ. We have a personal investment in DG. We have a financial investment now into DG. He sold us a brand, right? That brand is no longer a UCF brand. And as a result, that passion that went into the financial aspect of it is no longer there. He's made a choice.
right.
And because he's made a choice, wish him well. Hope he does well and whatever.
If you follow people's Twitter, like subscribers, it's hit him pretty good. We'll just say that. It's going to hit him in the pocketbook for sure, no question. It's going to hit him in the wallet.
We'll see what happens. It may be a better business decision for him in the long
run.
run.
I'm just saying from UCF fans. And
Right.
UCF fans have every right to go about this however they want, in my opinion. Once you start selling yourself as a brand, it's a completely different thing than just being a college football player. You've opened yourself up to a lot of different things when you start selling fans, merchandise and everything else. So it's sad. It's a sad day that this has changed college football the way that it has, in my opinion.
Well, and let's say this
and
about
I'd like
that.
to move on if we can.
Well, let me say one point about this. It's not DG the brand. It's UCF the brand who supports DG.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, not anymore.
And that has changed.
Not anymore.
True that.
Okay. On to question number 4. We're 38 minutes into this. Do you think Mikey can still be the starter for 2022? Heck yeah. Why not? I mean, who knows? I'm sure we're going to get somebody from the transfer portal, and we're probably going to get a really good quarterback from the transfer portal. But Mikey Keene has proven that he can compete with that guy. That guy will be brought in to compete with the rest of the quarterbacks, and the best quarterback will play. It's always been like that. It'll always be like that. I don't know. It's exciting, though, and I can't wait to see who we get, because this stuff is exciting. In my opinion, it's free agency of college football now. So I like that part of it. I do like the free agency part, and I do like that people are able to transfer. Where I draw the line is still the NIL. I'm not a fan. I never will be. I just won't. So Number 5, have you heard any rumors of the UCF OC leaving? Offensive coordinator, which is our quarterback coach /
TJ Kinney.
Yeah, offensive coordinator, which Gus calls the plays, so whatever. I haven't heard anything about that. I would assume, though, that, if he has the chance to do something or go someplace and somebody's going to pay him, just like everybody else. You just saw the two huge coaches from OU and Notre Dame move along because people paid them. Never would have thought that the OU coach would leave as they're going into the SEC. That blows my mind personally, and I'm sure that the Oklahoma fans are extremely pissed off, even more than we are this week. So okay, and then so here's the deal. There's replies to Tony's questions as well that kind of...
So not just our opinion, but others.
Yeah. So, this is and that's fine. I don't mind because we can reply to those things as well. UCF Guy 23 says, let's assume that everything that's reported on the Dungeon message board about DG is true. How upset are you? Well, I've just pretty much told you about that because I believe what I read. On there, I believe anything that I hear from Brandon. He's a very, very reliable source. Why are some, and then he puts in parentheses 96.9 the game, ignoring the fact, or are they just covering for DG in the program? They're not going to say the things that Brandon did. They're not going to air that stuff on air. They're just not. Number one, Mark Daniels is an employee of UCF. You have to remember that. He is an employee. He gets paid by UCF. So, of course, he's going to... He was one of the first people that brought this up, though, and said DG was going to transfer. Remember that? And everybody was mad about that?
Yep.
So, yeah. So he let the cat out of the bag, and everybody bashed him for it, myself included. But I have no problem doing that. I just didn't want it to be true at the time. I could care less now. And then blah, blah, blah. There's some other stuff that doesn't really need to be mentioned there in the comments. Then Golden Knight 2 asks, probably premature, but did the offense just get worse with DG bailing? Is Mikey King really the answer? Did it? Obviously, DG's a good quarterback. We're not ever going to say that he's not a good quarterback. He has a great arm. He can throw the long ball like nobody else I've ever seen, to be honest with you, with accuracy, for the most part. Maybe you saw this year what it looked like without him. You saw what it looked like with a freshman quarterback. We still went 8-4 with a freshman quarterback that should have still been in high school. It's going to get good again. There are other quarterbacks out there. It's not just DG. I don't think it got worse, and I don't know if Mikey Keene is the answer. I think that the summer and next spring will prove that, and that's the only way that can be figured out. Who knows who's in the transfer portal? We don't even know yet. There's a couple of guys in there, but no huge names yet. There's going to be. You never know. We've done some pretty amazing things through the transfer portal here with Gus Malzahn. Gus will lead us to glory. Trust me on that. Yeah. So. It is what it is. UCF Zach. And it's the Zeebles UCF. Zeebles UCF. What position group would you like to see Gus and company focus on in the portal this offseason? That's his first question. There are multiple questions here, too. Obviously, we would like to see the offensive line, in my opinion, needs to really be focused on in the transfer portal because we're losing a lot of seniors, a lot of people that have played a lot of games for UCF up there, and I don't know really what's behind them. I don't think the cupboard is bare, obviously, but that is my biggest concern. obviously, besides the quarterback situation. We obviously need to bring somebody in, as a quarterback, and we obviously need to bring in a bunch of offensive linemen. Wide receiver is still, you saw that you saw throughout the season. We were worried about the wide receiver core in the beginning, and we saw throughout the season there was pretty much one guy. Once Flash got hurt, O'Keefe was it. There was not a lot more there. That really worries me. You have to, especially if you're going to bring a quarterback in from the transfer portal, especially somebody that can really sling the ball, he's got to have people to throw it to. You see in the NFL a lot of times what happens, you have a great quarterback and nobody else around him to support him. That's a problem. Wide receivers are huge in this system especially. And I think that, there wasn't nobody. Obviously, Brandon Johnson had a pretty good season. So, but that was pretty much it. It was O'Keefe and Johnson. There was not many. If you look at the cumulative stats, and I have trouble saying that. That's why I say it.
You did it right.
That's why I say
time,
it slowly. I'm focused. I'm kind of pissed off, so I'm in a mood. I'm in a mood tonight. But if you look at those cumulative stats, it was Ryan O'Keefe and Brandon Johnson. And pretty much that was it. Next in line, you have Jalen Robinson, obviously, that did very well during the early part of the season, but only played 7 games all season long. And then next in line, you have a running back, a tight end, a wide receiver, another wide receiver. I mean, but it's like 10 catches, and then another running back, and then another running back.
Let's pause on that for a moment, because I agree with you. I think offensive line, number one, is the most important transfer portal priority that we have, because we have a bunch of seniors on the offensive line. Now, no matter what you felt or how you felt the offensive line performed this year, we're going to have a lot of gaps there. And no quarterback is going to be successful if he has a porous offensive line. We saw that throughout the year. That being said,
I don't think that it was.
Well, no.
It wasn't porous. That's a strong word to use. Yes, they had their issues, but their issues came later in the season when they were beat up. They were not.
I'm not
they were not
disagreeing
porous
with you,
in the beginning.
But my point is,
I think you should clarify that.
Well, okay, so I'll clarify that. At the end of the day, a quarterback can't perform to their potential, let's just say it that way, without an offensive line. There's a reason why the quarterbacks pay for the offensive line's dinners every year in the NFL, right? Because at the end of the day, they can't perform if they don't have time. And you saw that a lot towards the end of the year with Mikey Keene. You go from 10 yards per pass to 4 yards per pass. And the reason for that is the offensive line is breaking down, and you're not going to be as accurate if you can't set your feet or you don't have the time to make a decision. Now, that being said, going back to your wide receiver core, I agree with you. What we didn't see a lot this season was separation. What we've seen in years past was the ability to, with Traquan Smith, circus catches, with Gabe Davis.
Didn't have any of those guys this year.
Right. Yeah. With Gabe Davis, what did you see? In the end zone, he was a threat. There was no... I didn't see a lot of separation. I didn't see a lot of comeback routes. I didn't see a lot of wide receivers creating separation
because
with their
talent
defensive
wasn't
backs.
There.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's my point. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go a little bit different. I think wide receivers are important. Skill players are important. I think that's something you can fill. I think we have some guys. We have a 5-star wide receiver that has not seen the field yet.
4-star.
Okay, the guy from Notre Dame, is he
Well,
a
that
4-star?
guy too, yeah. But he was a
I
bust.
thought he was a 5-star.
He was a bust at Notre Dame, and it seems pretty much like he's a bust here, to be honest with you.
Well,
He played in 4 games this year.
Yeah, and the thing at Notre Dame was Brian Kelly's system, right?
Yeah, but that's what we say when was it? I mean, this is a much easier system.
I can tell you this.
This is This is a much easier system than Brian Kelly's system, and he did not thrive here when he had the opportunity to. So
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
I just don't think that I'm writing him off, to be honest with you. I just something. I don't know, unless he was hurt.
Well, I'm not writing
because he showed
him off
absolutely
yet.
nothing. And then Titus as well. Titus as well, highly recruited 4-star player, came from Hawaii, showed really nothing except 1 punt return that was really good. He should have played a lot better this year too. It was a huge disappointment in
but I will say this: the same way that quarterbacks, right, need to learn a system, and the same way that quarterbacks need to have some time within the system, Mikey Keene
not
included.
the same at all. With wide receivers, not the same at all.
Okay,
Not
we'll
the
agree
same
to
at all.
disagree on
Yeah.
that. Where
Wide
I was
receivers
going,
have known their routes that they run in college football for years. They were running these same routes in Pee Wee football.
I disagree with that. And here's where I'm going with that. Look at Heupel's offenses. Their route tree was very limited. So depending on what they came out of high school and depending on what they came out of college, their route trees are completely different. What I didn't see this year that I wanted to see was comeback routes. Because at the end of the day, there were a lot of times where Mikey Keene was rolling out and there was no one there. There was no one there who created separation. You saw a lot of balls being thrown out of bounds near a receiver.
They were all underperforming.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I guess
you're trying
my point
to, but
is,
you're not doing it very well.
well, I disagree with you on that. My point with that is that, you know, you go from, let's take that 5-star recruit, for example. He went to Notre Dame. Most receivers at Notre Dame don't play until their junior year because it's a very complicated system. Then they come back and, you know, you go to UCF, you've got a new system that you're putting in place. You've got established wide receivers. Jalen Robinson went out. He comes back. He did not perform. He did not create separation. He did okay, but he didn't do what he was doing in the spread offense. That's a byproduct of them learning the system and a different skill set that's required. You don't learn a route tree and how to do it properly over the span of a season, typically. It takes multiple seasons to do that. So at the end of the day, while I agree wide receiver is going to be an issue, my biggest issue and what I want to see them address in the transfer portal is, as you said, offensive line, number one. Because everything starts with the offensive line. Secondly, linebacker position. We saw Quade Mergier, who we were very high on the past few years, and I do think we have some linebackers there that can be successful. What we don't have is depth.
Is Tatum Bethune a senior this year?
I think he is. I don't know if he can come back next year or not, but he
should have another year if he wants to.
The USF game, the Bulls game, the Cows game, whatever, the Golden Brahma Bulls, as they used to be called. He had himself a game.
He had himself a game all season.
Yeah,
all
did.
season
Really?
he had a game.
Honestly.
Dude played harder than anybody else out there all season long.
I agree with you.
Period. No question about it. Besides Quadric Bullard and Bryson Armstrong, those were the three guys.
JJP did pretty well.
Well, yeah,
and
but
I would say that
if you look at the
Hodges did
if
pretty
you
well.
look at the stats, I'm talking about stats. I'm looking directly at the cumulative stats.
Cumulative.
So total tackles, 101 for Tatum Bethune. The next closest guy, 78. The next closest guy after that, 77. The next closest guy after that, 65, 50,
and that
48,
was with him being
35,
out.
34, 32, 32, 28, 28, 26, blah, blah, blah.
And that was with him being out. He was out for several games. And on top of that,
he was out for one game. Tatum Bethune was out for one game. He played in 11 games.
Yes, but he was out for like a half a game.
He played in 11 games. Played in 11 games. He didn't play the whole game. He played in 11 games, so he wasn't technically out. He was out for one game. We played 12 games.
A full game, yes.
Yeah,
but he was...
Dude. Anyway, what I'm saying is he... Look at the numbers. I mean, he played harder than anybody else did. Like, no question. No question. 101 tackles. Bryson Armstrong, who led the team until he couldn't play anymore, he played 10 games, 77. Quadric Bullard had a great year, though. 78 for him.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, but we've got Ask Knightline questions. Like, we cannot get stuck on... We've got so many more of them. We got to keep going.
That. But let me just say this about that. The secondary. You mentioned Gibbs as a coach. The secondary from the beginning of the season to the end of the season is completely different.
Because they bought in and they followed the freaking rules.
100%. And that's one of the areas that I'm most excited about is to see what the secondary does next year.
Yeah.
Because they're all young. They're all sophomores primarily. And at the end of the day, I think they will do very well for us. So for me, and to the original question, offensive line, 100% agree with you. Secondarily, I think linebackers. I know you said wide receivers because I do think we need some help there, but I think we've got more depth there than we do at linebacker position.
Linebacker's not a skill position,
right?
So
I agree with that.
I'm more concerned with skill positions. I'm not worried about running back. We'll find running backs. We'll probably get a big running back in the transfer portal as well.
Well, we've got McDonald coming in.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we need somebody that's had game time though too. So, and there's not a lot there that have had, really good game time. So I bet you anything we get a big running back in the transfer portal. Just in my personal opinion.
I agree with you.
Okay, so can we move on?
Of course we can.
Okay, good. Yeah, because there's a lot here, and we're already this is going to be already a 2-hour. Yeah, it's going to be way more than that. So settle down, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a while. Make yourself comfortable. You can pause and return back. That's the wonderful thing about it being a podcast. In fact, we didn't even answer. I still got to go back and answer one of Tony's questions. Where do you think UCF goes bowling? It was number 2. I skipped over it because I wanted to come back to it. There are all kinds of bowl predictions that are out there. It seems like it. I saw the last one being the Fenway Bowl, which is kind of interesting. The one that's played at Fenway Park. That could be kind of cool for the players, I think. For fans, I don't know. The last time I saw a bowl game in a baseball stadium, it sucked. It was horrible. Worst football game I've ever been to in my life, in fact. Horrible. Horrible. It was if I always tell this story, I got those seats for the I don't even know what it was, the Bitcoin Bowl when we played against NC State there in Tampa at that, I guess you call it a baseball stadium. And the seats were awesome if it was a baseball game. They were awesome. They were right behind home plate. For a football game, they were horrible seats. And that may have been why I hated it so much, but it was the worst football game experience that I've ever had in my life. So I'm not a fan of football being played in baseball stadiums. But the opponent could be good. I mean, there's rumors out there that it could be Florida. Florida ain't going to do that, though. I don't think. Florida's not going to be made a fool
Florida
of by
would be the Gasparilla goal.
So it was still... I saw Florida and UCF in that Fenway Bowl. That was what it said. I don't know.
Well,
if that's
I saw
true
CBS. I mean, it depends on who you look at, but
there's lots of them out there. But I was just trying to come up with the one that I saw. Florida, it would be great to play Florida. We would all love that because Florida is not that good this year. And I think we're better than Florida. I think we could beat Florida. I don't think Florida is going to do that. I don't think they want us to be in a bowl game with them at all, especially when they're not that great and they don't even have a head coach. But they're going to have a head coach. But I think their head coach is probably going to coach his team in their bowl game if they have a bowl game. They hired who was it? The guy from Louisiana Lafayette, possibly.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's who they hired. Louisiana or Louisiana Lafayette. I can't remember. The Raging Cajuns, I think, is the one that they hired. Anyway, I don't care who we play as long as we win. That's the biggest thing for me. I don't want another
Billy
bowl.
Napier.
Yes, I don't want another bowl embarrassment like last year. Last year's game was an embarrassment. We were so worried about who we were going to play, then we got to play a good team, and we went out there and embarrassed ourselves. BYU, kicked our butt up and down the field all night, and I don't want to see that happen again. I don't think we have as many people that would sit out that are going to the NFL this year, personally, because there was a lot of guys that sat out because they were going to the NFL last year, our biggest class ever going to the NFL. That was one of the reasons why BYU kicked our butts all night long. Okay. Roger, do you have anything to say on that?
I mean, for me, Gasparilla is, Gasparilla versus Florida is what I've heard. I've heard Florida has some problems with that for obvious reasons. And I've heard Fenway as the backup. Memphis is going to the Hawaii Bowl. So to me, it's either going to be the Gasparilla.
For sure going to the Hawaii Bowl?
I'm sorry?
They've already accepted the Hawaii Bowl?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's either going to be us to the Gasparilla Bowl or the Fenway Bowl. I'm going to assume that it's going to be the Fenway Bowl because Florida is going to have its way. And Florida is supposed to be in the Gasparilla Bowl and has problems playing with us.
Whatever bowl that it is, though, as long as we win, I'll be happy.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
BYU last year, what the problem was the defense. Obviously, we have a better defense. And
it was the 5 players that sat out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Us versus Florida. I'm not sure we win that Florida game because of their defense. Our offense, it's allowed us to win based on how our defense is played. I don't know how our defense stacks up against the Florida offense, so I can't really speak to that. But I would love to see someone like, I don't know, the Chanticleers or someone like that, just to finish off with a 9-4 season.
Okay. So UCF Zach's second question, we've pretty much already covered it. Would you prefer a bowl we could win against or a more well-known opponent? Do you think there's a bowl-eligible team that meets both criteria? Probably not, but I would rather just win the bowl game. I don't really care who it's against. I mean, I'm not going anyway. It doesn't matter to me where it is, who it is. I mean, obviously, I just want them to win. I want them to get that 9th win. I don't want the off season to officially start with a loss. That's just my opinion. Here's a good one. He changes his name sometimes. This is great. This account, I love that this guy asks questions pretty much all the time, and I still am totally confused, and I've said this a million times on here, and I've gotten no response. The My Free Sport Travel or at Free Sport Travel, I still have no idea what that means. I would love to know, but it's kind of a running joke, and it's funny. And now he's changed his name. I can't remember what it was before. You can have your name, and then you have the Twitter handle. Now it's my UCF burner account. So I like that. He says, is DG now the most disliked UCF player for the last 20 years? I can't remember seeing any backlash like this from UCF fans in my days following the team. Maybe when Donald Delahaye sued the school. Yeah, I'm sure there was some before that. Wasn't there a quarterback that transferred over to USF or something like that back in the day?
Not that I remember. Not to
Wasn't
USF.
there a quarterback that I thought there was a quarterback that transferred to USF?
Not that I remember.
Okay, maybe not. Yeah,
But
I mean,
I'm 40 years old, so my memory is a little shoddy at this point.
or I don't know. There was some transfer. There was some weirdness with something. I thought one of our guys? I don't know. I'll have to look back in the records or something. I thought that there was a quarterback that transferred to USF or one of our rivals or something. One of the other rivals that made a lot of people mad. It was back like before Kyle Israel played, I think. I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. Somebody either can tell me I'm stupid or
I just fired up the Google machine, and all I see is UCF QB Dylan Gabriel enters transfer portal.
Of course, because of course that's all you're going to hear about now. You'd have to look, specifically back. Anyway, I would, yeah, probably. I mean, it's NIL. It's the new era of college football. Yeah. I mean, players are going to be hated more and more, I think, when they do stupid things like this. All right, Brian W. Peterson. How much does the Twitter social media negative reaction to DG transferring have on potential recruits considering UCF? Some make it seem like nobody will ever want to come to UCF again because of how DG is being treated now that he's leaving. Is that true? I don't think so. I mean, but that's kind of the chance that if you're going to mess around like this, if you're going to make your brand more important than your team, I don't want you at UCF anyway, personally. I mean, I want guys that come here to play because they love UCF. I want people to come here because they want to beat our rivals. I want people to come here because they love their school. I've said this before. I said it earlier. I don't want people to come here because it's good for their brand. I could care less. I'm never buying any of that stuff, just so y'all know. I'm never buying anybody's branded stuff. I'm just not. You can call me old, you can call me dumb, whatever you want. I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I don't agree with it. And especially because of this situation. This proves my point and makes me feel a lot better about the way I think and proves to myself that this whole deal is a bad idea. It's just my personal opinion. I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. But yeah, I mean, this yeah. Anyway, whatever. I don't know. You got anything to add? I kind of lost my.
Not really. I don't think it.
I
don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts.
I don't think it does either. But I just, if we could let them know that they just need to come here for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. And, we've been through a lot with all the head coaches and stuff like that. Nobody that's on this team no, because there is a couple, that's wrong. There's a couple people that were recruited by Gus Malzahn. The transfer players that he brought with him were recruited by him, but that's it. Everybody else is either a Josh Heupel leftover or I don't know. Is there any Frost leftovers? There's a couple Frost leftovers still. So
very few.
Yeah, but still, hardly anybody on this team was recruited by Gus Malzahn. So yeah, I just think that I don't know. I just want guys to, like I said, I'm not going to repeat it again, but just come and play for your school. Play for what's important. It's not about you. It's not all about you. It's about your team. That's what it should be about. It should be about those fans that are screaming and willing you to win, like Gus says all the time. Gus said it again this week. Here, I'll play the clip about how, I think I have it. Yeah, here it is right here. Listen to this.
It got loud now, and you could feel it now. You could feel the intensity. And then, like I said before, they've willed us to win. I mean, Tulane, they willed us to win. East Carolina, that was a real summer of that. and they will us to win. And just so thankful for our fan base being patient with us. I know it hadn't been the bells and whistles and everything it's going to be, but I really appreciate our fan base hanging with us, being patient. Really good times ahead.
That's why you should come to UCF and play. If you're a recruit listening, that's why you should come to UCF. Not because you want to further your brand, in my opinion. So, I mean, if the guys want to come and that's their main focus because UCF gets a lot of eyes on them, and, oh, my brand will be so big at UCF. They're going to the Big 12. That's not the right reason. So, Roger, you got anything on that?
No, I think you've said it all, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm just, that's just the way I feel about it. I'm this.
Listen, you and I, we're the old men yelling at the clouds, right?
I don't think we're yelling at clouds because there's quite a few people listening, and I think that they will at least understand our point. It's unfortunate that it's hard for our listeners to, communicate back and forth. But
let me put it to you this way. When I played semi-pro ball, okay, there were sponsors for our team, right? And I, as a 15-year-old kid, got money from my semi-pro team. That is wholly different, and that calculation is wholly different than playing for college football and the passion that's behind it. So for me, and I know, Andrew, you played professionally or semi-professionally, however you want to call it. You played as well. That is a totally
I didn't
different.
Get paid.
Well,
when I played semi-pro, I did not get paid. I paid. I literally paid to play.
Well, I didn't pay. I got paid. But at the end of the day, that is a different decision, right? Because
I paid $300 a season to play, and I had to carry my own insurance.
When I was playing semi-pro basketball, I could go to other teams and make more money, right? I didn't really care that I was playing for Würzburg or I was playing for Bad Kissingen or I was playing for anybody else. I cared about the money that I was initially. I cared about playing for Bad Kissingen, Germany, because that's where I was from. That's where I grew up. That's, I went down to the gym. They gave me my chance, and I played for them for, a while. But it was about the money. College football is not supposed to be about the money. It's
about 15 years old. You're saying that you played semi-pro basketball because of money.
I played semi-pro basketball
because of money.
I made decisions based on where I was going.
You didn't play for the love of the game?
I did initially, but after that, it was about who would win, right? Yeah. And what kind of money I would make. Because at that time, I was 15 years old. Now, hold on. Let me say this about that. I was 15 years old. My parents weren't paying for my Jordans, right? So that's all I was concerned about is what I was wearing to school the next day. But that gives you a picture of 15 to 18. Yes, there's a difference there, but there's not a whole lot of difference between 15 and 18-year-old, right? Because at 15, I was in high school. 18, you're in high school. There's not a whole lot of difference in the decision-making when it comes from a 15 to an 18-year-old. The other part was winning. I wanted to win, and I wanted to be on the best team that I could possibly be and earn a spot on. And so those were the two decisions that I made at that time based on where I was going to play. And I feel like I understand, but college football is different. It's always been different. And what we're seeing now is that shift because of NIL. That wasn't if I wasn't playing, again, semi-pro professional basketball, right? If I wasn't playing professional basketball, this would be a totally different conversation. But I was playing semi-professional basketball. It was about who could make the most on the sponsors that were there and who could give me the Jordans that I wanted to wear to high school the next day. And that's, along with obviously being on the team with the best players that were more than likely to win a championship. So in a very small level, the 15-year-old brain is the same as the 18-year-old brain. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have sponsors as well on this show, and we need to play some commercials. So thank you very much for your Ask Knightline questions. They were awesome, as always. Really appreciate it. And, look, you made that entire conversation there that we had and added a lot to everything here. So I really appreciate those questions. This was a big week to have a bunch of those questions, and you guys came through 100%. Appreciate it. All right, a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back. This is going to be a long one.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com. All right, so a little bit back to the game. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about this football game, and I don't know if you guys really even want us to talk about this football game. It wasn't pretty. It was just a win. A win against USF is, pretty much the most important thing. Ugly or whatever, it doesn't matter as long as we won the game, and we did. I do want to play a couple of clips from Gus, though, because I think there were some pretty important things that he said. Let's just start with this one on Mikey Keene.
I mean, just think, he's 18 years old. I know he came here, he got here about a month before I did, and I guarantee he wasn't thinking he's going to have to carry the mail for us. And not only he carried the mail, the guy's a lot of winter in him, man. He's tough. He's not very big. That guy is a tough dude. And just what you have to go through off the field mentally to play quarterback in Division I, that's hard. Then you throw in the physical. I mean, you saw him, he got banged up, and he wasn't 100% coming to the game. He hadn't been 100% probably in the last 3 weeks. But he's not complaining. Nobody knows. He's tough as crap, and I couldn't be more proud of him.
All right. Well, hats off to Mikey Keene. You definitely gave it your all, and we greatly appreciate it. And then as well, UCF won 5 of 6 at the end of the season. It's pretty incredible, to be honest with you. I'm extremely happy with that. Here's what Gus had to say on that.
It was hard. It's all our players. They just decided to do it. We went 5-1 and 3-3. I mean, it wasn't real good now. It wasn't a lot of fun then. And we were going through a transition of quarterbacks. We had KD. We lost him. Our best defensive player. But our guys fought, man. That's what I remember. I remember the 5-1, and it wasn't easy tonight, but we found a way to win. And 5-1, that last 6 games, probably not very many teams around the country that can say that.
All right, and then Gus Malzahn was asked. Mike Bianchi was actually the one that asked. He asked some good questions, even though Mike Bianchi is Mike Bianchi, and don't always agree with everything, but he does ask some good questions, and he digs sometimes. He asked if this was Gus Malzahn's best coaching of his career to make this happen from an injury-ridden team and a freshman quarterback. Here's what Gus had to say to that.
I don't know about that. I'm just blessed to be coaching this bunch. this is probably the most challenging year I've ever had as a coach as far as injuries and next man up. But it'll be one of the most rewarding, I feel like. I just keep telling myself, hey, we're building this thing. We're building this thing. And we told our seniors the same thing. So, guys, we'll look back. There's going to be great times ahead. And this year, everybody will look back. And the foundation's being built. And so, but yeah, it's been interesting.
And then next, Gus was asked about the bowl game and how, he wanted that to go down if he's, they said something about possibly playing Florida, and this was his answer.
Hey, man, like I said when I first got hired, man, we'll play anybody. I mean, it's a bowl. It's a chance to win 9 games. I mean, we're very excited to go bowling wherever we are, whoever we're playing. I mean, we're going to be extremely excited.
And then the final one that I got for you, Gus Malzahn was asked about what he thought of the war on I-4 and if he wanted it to continue. This was his answer.
I mean, it was real. I've been blessed to be a part of some really cool rivalries, and this was right there with it, especially you just feel the intensity and how important it is to everyone, and teams play their guts out. And like I said, hats off to that bunch. They played their guts out, man, and it was a good game to watch, I'm sure, for fans. As far as the future, I mean, we'll see with our administration and all that. They'll make the decisions on that.
All right. Well, that was the Gus clips that I wanted to play for y'all this week. So, Roger, we're an hour and 21 minutes into this. I don't know what more we really want to cover before we talk to Brandon, because Brandon's going to he has a lot to say. But we all have a lot to say in this interview with Brandon. Let's do that and see where we're at after that. Does that sound good to you?
Sure.
Okay. All right, got to pay some bills real quick again, and then we will get right to that Brandon Helwig interview right after this. If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Knightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
All right, please welcome our good friend, Brandon Helwig of UCFsports.com. Brandon, man, it has been one heck of a season, number one. And it's already starting. It's kind of the off season. It's off regular season. We still have a bowl game, but it's kind of starting to be an odd off season as well with, go ahead, with Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just because, now we're back into a normal kind of flow of a season after the COVID year and, traveling to road games and all that stuff and trying to follow recruiting. And now it's just so different because of the transfer portal. I mean, we all know the big news over the weekend with Dylan Gabriel going in there, but obviously that's going to be a big deal for UCF in the next, week to a month of, recruiting guys in the portal. So I've been trying to follow that today and seeing who's in there and who UCF could potentially be in the mix for, and trying to, check in with, high school commits at the same time. Like I just got off the phone with a guy that's been committed to UCF. So between that and the Dylan drama and everything else, it's kind of been a crazy couple of days, since we hit the end of the regular season on Black Friday.
Yeah, obviously Black Friday, a big win against the Cows, and our record now, we're on the winning side of that rivalry, which is a great thing. I didn't care how it happened. We're not even going to talk too much about the game, I don't think, really, today. We're just going to talk about the season and what it was. But that was a big deal to be on the right side of that rivalry.
Yeah, and it's, it's kind of, probably going to be the last game, in the Bounce House for a long time, with South Florida. And, I've been pretty vocal that I'd like to see the series continue. I mean, I know obviously, UCF's going to go into the Big 12 in a couple years, and it would have to be a non-conference game, and Big 12 is probably going to have 9 conference games, so that's one less slot. And, I know South Florida has non-conference schedules booked for quite a few years, but man, I don't know if it's me being selfish or not, but it's been great. UCF hasn't had to travel or be away from home on Thanksgiving weekend since 2010. I mean, they played USF every year since 2013. It's always great every year, Thanksgiving weekend, Black Friday, what have you. It's either going to be in Orlando and Tampa. It's an easy trip if it's in Tampa. The weather is going to be fine. And, I don't know if I'm really looking forward that much to potentially ending the year like at Kansas State in the snow on Thanksgiving weekend, traveling with all the hordes of people. I'm not really looking forward to that. I obviously I'd like to see the series continue, if not just for that reason. And come on, look at the stadium the other night. I mean, it was packed, and the game wasn't meaningless, but I'm just from where UCF was a couple years ago, there wasn't really anything on the line other than the rivalry aspect, taking the series lead, keeping the trophy and all that stuff. That's important, but I mean, it's not like UCF's in the conference race, national ranking, trying to stay up there for New Year's Six. All that was out the window, and it was still mostly a packed stadium, except for a handful of students that probably just went home and Thanksgiving weekend couldn't make it back. Other than some empty spots in the student section, it was completely packed, and people were juiced up and excited for the game. I mean, the game itself was not really that exciting until the end of the game, and obviously mainly just because of the end result, but it was a great atmosphere. It got loud. I mean, I know it'll be fun to play these Big 12 teams in a few years, but I don't know if just the passion and the excitement and all that stuff that comes with USF. I mean, I'd like to see it continue, but it's not up to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely with you on that. I mean, I've been a fan. I started school in '99, so I remember going to the Citrus Bowl, which we used to affectionately call something else that began with an SH, and the Bowl Queen. I don't know if you remember that, but they had a young lady walking around with a plunger and toilet paper who was the Bowl Queen of the Citrus Bowl game. But having been to all of those rivalry games, having remembered all of those defeats, I'm with you on this. I mean, for a lot of us, it's actually quite interesting to me because I'm older now than the average UCF alum. I just turned 40. But I remember all of that bad blood that existed back then. It doesn't feel like that bad blood exists today, but for those of us that remember, I think we all are in favor of making sure that we continue the series and hopefully put now that we've taken the lead, came back from the Cows led 6-2, came back. We have the lead now 7-6. I'd love to hear your, for those of our fans that are 35 or younger who don't remember those times or those games, just kind of go through a few of the highlights of why this thing is such a big deal.
And we're about the same age, Roger, and I think we've had this discussion on the message board before that I think how people feel about the rivalry is maybe a little bit different if you're maybe over a certain age. I don't know if it's 30, 35 or somewhere in that range, or in your 30s or above, and fans that are a little bit younger, maybe early 30s and their 20s, is a little bit different because the younger fans weren't really around to remember the things that, South Florida did to try to hold back UCF, and obviously they weren't around for those early games. But, it's just one of those things, if you were following UCF in the late 90s when, UCF was going 1A and trying to establish themselves within the state of Florida and join a conference and stuff, and then, South Florida comes along and South Florida pretty much had everything handed to them. Was able to get in Conference USA because their basketball program was already in there, or their other sports, and then they were able to get that Big East invite, and that just felt like, that was just such a crushing blow because that was always UCF's goal. Now we call it Power 5. Back then it was a BCS conference, just to get in a league like that and have better access, more TV exposure, all that stuff, more money. It was just the biggest gut punch ever when USF got in and really hadn't accomplished anything. Just the fact that, they'd just been wanting to play a couple years before. It's hard to say what really UCF had accomplished, but obviously had the Dante years and everything else. Back then, I think UCF had the more established fan base, but, just because of where USF was, they were already in a better, all sports conference. They had better connections with, perhaps the leadership of the Big East at that time. It just felt like a huge gut punch, and just what they continually try to do to keep UCF down. They never wanted to play the rivalry. They only played the first 4 games from 05 to 09 because that was part of the exit terms when USF left Conference USA for the Big East. That was the only reason they played UCF. And then when that 4-year stretch was done, USF was like, "That's it. We're not going to play again. You're not a peer of us. We're not rivals. We're better than you. We don't want to justify your existence by having us being played. I'd rather playing you." And so the only reason that Black Friday War Night 4 got restarted because both teams, were, pretty much stuck in the American, back in 2013. So, going through all that and going back and forth with their fans online, and, even before they were, Twitter and Facebook, there was always message boards. And UCF and USF fans will always go at it on the Bulls pin and, our message board on UCFsports.com. So there's a long history that goes back with a lot of those people. And, I kind of hate to see it end. And unfortunately, I think it will.
Yeah, so I haven't been around nearly as long as you guys have been. I'm older than you guys, but I probably would be, as far as knowledge of that rivalry, be a little bit farther behind, obviously. But I am aware, obviously, of them moving to the Big East and all that stuff, and kind of waving goodbye with the middle finger, to UCF. The funny thing is, now that the tides are kind of turned, and I wonder how they feel that we're going to the Big 12 and they're not. I hope that they're enjoying it because
I hope they liked that, which is a quote that Matt Grothe had after they pretty much killed UCF 64-12 back in 2007.
Yeah, and if this thing continues, our recruiting is probably going to get a big step up. Obviously, going to the Big 12, I think it's already kind of happening. And we should be able to hopefully lay some of those numbers on them when we do play them again.
Yeah,
they're probably going to be in Conference USA.
The most frustrating thing to me is that UCF has never been able to 64-12 those guys, is kind of what I call it, after what USF did in 2007, just because there was years like 2013, UCF, it shouldn't have been a nail biter that year. It shouldn't, even though I know there's injuries and freshman quarterback, obviously, with UCF this year, it shouldn't probably have been as close as it was. It just kind of felt like, why is UCF letting these guys hang around? It's always a great game. It's a lot of fun. People get into it. But maybe with UCF going to the Big 12 and recruiting at a higher level, it won't really be, those memories will fade. It's not, with different talent levels on teams, maybe it really wouldn't be that fun anymore. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that'll be the case. I want to get back to this year, though. This was a very odd year, even without COVID. We luckily got through. There wasn't any games canceled for us, but there were for other teams, a couple. But the injury plague this year was insane. And I think, I don't know this for a fact, but I've been trying the entire season to try to figure out, was any of this COVID related with workouts not being as strong last year or whatever compared to this year? I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel in a weird way it has something to do with it. But it was one of the most odd seasons that there ever has been, in my opinion, of UCF football anyway, since I've been involved. Just with all the injuries. I mean, it just...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just kind of, I guess it's just kind of the way the ankle rolled or the way I don't know. I know I've seen people bring that up before, but some of the weird injuries were weird contact injuries. I think Bowser took a helmet to the knee, and obviously,
and his
Dylan's
knees were torn up in the first place. So, we all
he
knew
got
that
hit his
about him.
collarbone. That was a crazy play at the end of the game. You probably shouldn't even have been in that position,
Exactly.
To try to have that. But there were just some weird things that happened this year. I don't know if there's really anything to blame. It just happened some year, and UCF got bit by it.
But my point was that 8-4 is not bad for what happened. That's really my main point here. We had a great season, and I think if we did not have a guy like Gus Malzahn, if we had Josh Heupel, there's no way that would have happened.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone this afternoon about that. Like, well, what do you think if everything was the same and Josh Heupel was the head coach?
Not.
His philosophy, what do you think the record
We
would have been?
4-8. We would have been 4-8.
Yeah.
If not a lot worse than that, honestly.
Yeah, and you'll see how Mikey, through his starts, really cut down on his turnovers. And I know people get frustrated. Well, they're not throwing the ball deep. I mean, then when there's been opportunities, he would. But I mean, he called it very safe to try to allow Mikey to manage the game and not force turnovers, and it worked out. I mean, I'm sure it was frustrating at times. Some of these games, this past Friday, that Tulane game and everything. But I mean, at the end of the day, they were wins.
Yeah.
And that's all that really matters. And to go 8-4 in his first season, in spite of all of the injuries on both sides of the ball, I think is quite remarkable.
Yeah, and he wound up with 63%, which Dylan Gabriel in the 3 games, he was 68%. It's 5 percentage points different. So, I mean, I know it's a larger body of work, obviously, but he really did not do that horrible. And we've seen these guys through their freshman to sophomore off season get tremendously better, and that's normally when that stuff happens. So I'm expecting, who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be next year. Obviously, we've got this old Dylan Gabriel thing, so we know he's not going to be here, but who knows who's going to be here and all that. But Mikey Keene is going to have the opportunity in the off season to get a lot better.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, is Mikey going to enter the spring as the favorite to start? I mean, with Dylan leaving, I think you got to maybe go to the transfer portal and see who you can land and have someone else compete with him this spring. I tend to, reminisce now when you guys brought in Joey Gatewood, although, at that time, I think Gus probably had a good idea that he didn't know Dylan was going to get injured, but I think he knew the kind of personality that Dylan was and how highly emotional he was, and kind of, how he was threatening to transfer when he was, throwing a temper tantrum when they didn't hire Jeff Lebby back in the spring. So I mean, Gus knows players. He's been through it. I think he knows that. I think he maybe brought in Gatewood to bring in a guy, not necessarily to compete this year, but in the event that Dylan Gabriel wouldn't be around the following year. Now, we saw what kind of, Joey Gatewood wasn't the most effective at the Joey Gatewood plays. As I think we've joked how Parker Navarro is better than Joey Gatewood plays than Joey Gatewood. But I mean, back before we knew any of that, I sort of tend to think that guys have that in the back of his mind that maybe it would be a smart move to bring him in now because there may be a wide open quarterback battle come this upcoming spring. Now we'll see. I think he's going to try to find someone else in the portal.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the most exciting things in the offseason is to see who we get as far as a quarterback in the portal. And then, we have Castellanos coming, and he says that no, don't worry, Orlando, or don't worry, Night Nation, that I'm on the way, or whatever.
Right. He's a spring guy. He's a January guy, so he'll be going through spring balls. So
you saw the tweet, I'm sure, that he said that, don't worry, I'm on the way, your hero, or I'm your hero, or something like that.
And hey, I feel like, I know a lot of schools were continuing to come after Thomas, and he's been pretty, emphatic on Twitter and socials the past few weeks that he saw with UCF. And I'm sure he knew what was going on, or maybe the coaches kind of put it in his ear that, Dylan's not coming back. So, I think that probably, if anything, keeps him in the fold and less of a risk to maybe jump ship.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas, he was getting interest from Georgia, the likes of Georgia, and a few other higher level teams. And it's actually kind of interesting because Dylan was too towards the end of his tenure while he was going through the recruiting process. I mean, you had USC after him. You had, I believe it was Georgia as well that was after him as well. It's interesting to me as DG kind of winds down and goes away. I think this is an opportunity for Gus. I think this is an opportunity for Gus to brand this football program as what he likes to run, which is, obviously a true dual threat quarterback. And Dylan was never that. He was always a pocket passer, which is why he worked in Heupel's offense so well. I think he could have worked in Gus's offense, but obviously he chose not to do that. Talk about what the difference that we will see with someone who is a dual threat quarterback in this offense versus someone like Dylan, who's more of a pocket passer.
Well, I think, maybe we've seen glimpses of it. I mean, not a whole lot with Mikey. In the previous game against UConn, he had that running touchdown. You just need basically for, look at what UCF was doing this year, but just you need a running threat. And Mikey really has been hesitant or not in his wheelhouse to do that. Or we saw a little bit of it. I mean, you say about Dylan not being a fit. I mean, Gus was adapting the offense to Dylan, and Dylan was adapting a little bit to, what Gus likes. And he was running the ball. I think he ran for 64 yards in that first game against Boise. And I think that's kind of a vision, of what to look like, maybe if it's Thomas Castellanos is the quarterback of the future, whoever it is, he has a plenty good arm from what I've seen on his high school highlight video. But you're going to have someone that's basically another running back there. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. I didn't watch a whole lot of Auburn the last few years to kind of see. I know they've had some issues offensively the last few years, but like Gus said, he's going to adapt the offense to the talent he has, whether it's Dylan Gabriel in the first few games this year, whether it's, a transfer quarterback coming in, Thomas, Mikey, hopefully improving going into next year. I mean, we'll kind of see what happens there.
Well, I hope that Parker Navarro sticks around as well. He was kind of the guy that I thought would probably be the odd man out, but he got in and got to show his running ability, especially, and it was pretty good. Just in the small.
I mean, he's got a role. I mean, the thing about it is that would he kind of does he want to try to see if he can go someplace and start? I mean, I don't know if he could really get a Division I transfer opportunity. Maybe one FCS might, but he's got a role in the team now, and if anything, I think ending the season, with his touchdowns and what he was able to do, I mean, maybe that's enough to kind of get him to stick around. I know he's not, he's from Arizona, just like Mikey, so it's kind of far away from home. But I mean, you need guys like that. You need backups. You need guys to run scout team. You need guys, in a case of emergency to run practice. I mean, so you hope you don't lose him.
Yeah. I'm assuming Gatewood his eligibility is done, right?
No, he's got eligibility remaining, and we'll see what happens, with him. I mean,
oh, okay. I thought
I've said it, other people have said it, like this guy, he looks like a tight end,
Right.
I'm not sure he's going to compete for the starting quarterback job based on what we've seen.
Do you think Gus wants a guy that's a bigger quarterback? Because he is not normally known for having small quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean,
He's usually had a big prototypical NFL-sized quarterback back there.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about, portal, they're just going to try to get best available. I was very curious to see if, maybe that Florida quarterback, Anthony Richardson, hits the portal. He hasn't, there were some rumors that he might leave. I think UCF would definitely want to get in that mix if he was in the portal, but he's not. It'll be kind of interesting to see, kind of who kind of materializes that's realistic for UCF if they can get a slam dunk, someone that obviously a guy that would be the odds-on favorite to, win the job, or if they just get someone who maybe was, a young guy that kind of was tossed in the depth chart or somewhere that's not quite established, that would be more of an even playing field with Thomas and Mikey this spring.
Right.
When you look at it, it's kind of funny because, it goes back to the Biggie song, and I'm reaching way back here, more money, more problems, right? At the end of and P. Diddy, but at the end of the day, as we grow, I think what we've witnessed as UCF fans is we used to go diamond mining, as the affectionate term for it, right? Where we'd go and we'd find somebody that had some skill sets, and George O'Leary would, work on this person, and then finally their junior year, they'd be like, okay, this is what we thought they could be, and prepared them for the NFL. Now, I think what people are seeing, both Parker Navarro and Mikey Keene were highly rated quarterbacks out of Arizona at the time, very successful in their own right. And now we've got a 5-star Joey Gatewood here. We've got Parker Navarro. We've got all these folks, and we're playing the best player. So, I feel, and Brandon, I'd love to hear your take on this, is that the transition has become from our brand and our success as a program and our stature within college football, that's going to change. And I think what we're going to see is more of that versus, kind of what we were used to, which was, okay, we've got this guy with a lot of potential. We're going to keep with him until he succeeds. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, the transfer portal, because you're going to have your spots per year, and you're going to maybe we're going to have 2/3 of these on high school guys, or maybe 3. We'll see what the percentages weigh out to be, but then they're going to get a lot of guys who may be a little bit more established, more of a sure thing, guys who have done it at the college level, because it's always a crapshoot, so to speak. The old George O'Leary, adage that he would say that, he would make cracks about these 4-star recruits working at McDonald's. I don't think that was really quite of a fair statement. We're just kind of one of those O'Leary jokes, but it's true. Sometimes these guys that, and that's just, not everyone's a bust, but yeah, there's always busts. There's always guys who are highly rated that don't pan out. And then there's guys like, Bruce Miller that are like 2-star type players, and Josh Sitton and Leger Douzable, and these guys that go on, and heck, Blake Bortles. No one wanted Blake Bortles as a quarterback, and he ended up being drafted 3rd and making a lot of money. So, that's kind of what UCF said, but that's just kind of, UCF didn't really have a choice. You're kind of playing at a, you weren't a, BCS school back then in those days, and you kind of had to find players where you could find them. And, George O'Leary was a great evaluator of talent. He did more due diligence than a lot of other coaches who probably just, recruited based on other people's rankings online, whether they're qualified to make those rankings or not. And, but yeah, now going into the Power 5 and the Big 12, you'll still have some, a little bit of a disadvantage at times recruiting against schools in the SEC. But, you have the Gus factor with UCF. Just look at it this year. They've been able to win head-to-head battles with Florida and Miami, and that's something that was really unheard of. It had never really happened before, to be honest. When did UCF ever get a recruit that was heavily recruited that could have committed to Florida or Miami? Maybe there's been guys in the past who had offers at one point, and those Florida, if Miami fills up, they're not being recruited anymore, and you kind of point that they had an offer. But yeah, UCF, several of the guys in the class, the Henderson twins, you look at Leighton Nelson, the offensive lineman with Florida. There's a bunch of guys that that those schools wanted. So yeah, I think it's recruiting's obviously can take, as we've seen, it's taken a step forward in terms of the players being targeted, and they're not afraid to go after the best of the best. UCF was going head to head with guys that guys visited this past summer who committed to Alabama, and you could say why are you bothering doing that, but you never know, you're going to hit one of them, and I'm telling you, one of these guys that, we've seen their name float around. They're going to come back to UCF, next year or year after, transfer portal. That's why you do it. You're recruiting not just for now, but you're recruiting for 2 or 3 years from now, when that player you built a good relationship with is maybe unhappy or maybe not seeing the playing time they want, but they still are pretty good. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those guys head UCF's way in a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, in the last couple of years, the college football landscape has changed tremendously with not only the transfer portal becoming much more, it's always been there, but it's becoming much more, I guess, able to be seen or in the front of people's minds instead of in the back, kind of like it used to be. And then the name, image, likeness thing. And it's kind of created issues a little bit. I think that, some of that had to do with the Dylan Gabriel issue. I think that the name, image, likeness became kind of more important to him than football did in a way.
Yeah, it certainly kind of appeared that way.
This may be the first case of this that we see, but I don't think it's going to be the last.
Yeah, only Dylan himself, if he's honest, could truthfully answer that question. But from outward appearances, it certainly appeared he maybe cared more about that than he cared about other stuff. And this is kind of unfortunate what happened. But you go back and kind of look at the writing was on the wall, I think, for a long time that we go back and look when obviously he wanted Jeff Levy to get the job, and he was upset when Gus was hired, and then he. What do people do sometimes when they're, maybe not the most mature? They go on to delete photos and play games with, his Twitter hand or his, just subject, byline and stuff, and deleted that. And then he, they had to talk to him, and Gus had to kind of re-recruit him a little bit, because he was telling people he was upset back then. He was going to transfer because he wanted Levy to get the job, and they didn't listen to him, and so he was angry. And so, so you can kind of look to see the, you don't mature in 6 months. The same guy that was doing that in February really isn't any different once you got to September, October when he got hurt.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, it's really not surprising what happened. I think with the immediate eligibility, I think this was probably always going to happen, even if he didn't get hurt, just kind of looking at his personality and all that stuff that, he's thinking he could go somewhere else. And, maybe that DG, the brand, at another school, would sell a lot better. He gets more endorsements, gets more money that way. Maybe someone gives him a car, I don't know. I think UCF kind of knew for a little while. The rumors had been there.
Yeah.
At least since middle of October that, he wasn't coming back. And, if he was cleared, if he wanted to get back and really practice and get back and try to play the last couple of games, he could have, he didn't want to, which is his right. And that's kind of, where the rules are now with the transfer portal, and he can get in there and be immediately eligible to play, and he didn't want to burn a year, even though I don't know if he's going to play another 3 years in college, but I guess he wanted to have that option. So, there was no need to try to come back. And, so it is what it is, and UCF's going to move on, and, I'm sure he'll do fine, and UCF will do just fine as well.
Yeah. I was one of those guys that was clamoring for Jeff Lebby as well. And I love Jeff Lebby as a person because I know him quite well. And, so I was excited about that more than anything, having him here as the head coach and having accessibility to him that was kind of a personal, wish. But I'm sure glad we have Gus. Gus, I think at the time, Gus is the perfect guy to do this. I know there's some people out there that are not on the Gus bus, but I am fully on the Gus bus at this point, just because of what we talked about earlier, how the season transpired, what happened versus what could have happened. It blows my mind. He would repeatedly talk in the press conferences about, teams, in the second half of the season, it's not very likely they're going to get better. It doesn't happen all the time. He said it over and over and over again. I know you were at every one of those, almost everyone. You were sick for like 1 week, or 2 weeks or whatever. But you heard him say that the entire time it had happened. And that's, in my opinion, it has to be player buy-in as well, but a lot of what happened this year is coaching. Huge coaching. going on.
Yeah, you obviously that was a lot has happened this year. New AD, new coach, Big 12. There's Dylan Gabriel drama. Anyway, yeah, obviously we were talking about the coaching and all that drama that was going on, and early February and who UCF was going to hire, and Levy obviously made some sense for continuity purposes. I mean, familiar with the team and the offense and stuff. But I mean, for everything, that's the thing. Terry Mohajir kind of knew what UCF had been through with coaches who would kind of use UCF like a stepping stone, and Mohajir's coming in and kind of not that familiar with UCF because he had just been hired a couple weeks before and just didn't want to have to kind of have a rookie head coach that he got to kind of bring along and kind of learning on the job while Terry was kind of learning about UCF. So obviously Gus has the experience. He's more mature. He's seasoned. He's not to say, money isn't important, but I mean, he's made a lot of money at Auburn with that buyout. I mean, he's not necessarily looking for that, big payday that,
he's having no problems paying his bills on what we're paying him.
And he was fine with a big buyout, and he's not necessarily looking to leave. And never say never about any of that. I mean, you look at what's going on with coaching stuff the last day or two, just on Brian Kelly's going to LSU.
Exactly.
So you never know. But yeah, he has a better chance to be, UCF's version of O'Leary, just in terms of someone who sticks around, makes it their last stop, and is just kind of that solid foundation that UCF really hasn't had. Yeah, the offenses have been fun to watch and stuff like that, but it's kind of hard to build something when a coach is gone after like 2 years or 3 years or however long it was. So you look at what Luke Fickell has built at Cincinnati, just because he's been there for a period of time, and hopefully Gus will do the same thing at UCF.
Yeah, it'll make a huge difference.
I think honestly, when you're talking about that, you're talking about transition, right? At a time of transition, I mean, people aren't thinking about this yet, but 2023 is a time of transition for us. I mean, this is going to be another step up. I've said this on the podcast for years. Even before I was a regular person on the or personality on the podcast. Every 7 to 8 years, UCF steps up. We're in that transition period now. So when you bring Levy and you bring up Levy and you bring up DG, that's a short-term view versus the long-term stability of someone who can commit to UCF as we transition from the quote-unquote group of five to the quote-unquote power five, right? We are a P5 school. We have a P5 coach who was successful at the P5 level. He's the only one. He's the most successful person against Nick Saban. Although Nick Saban, he told us on Thanksgiving to be thankful for. He told the Alabama faithful, not us, to be thankful for what they have. But at the end of the day, he's the gold standard for college football as it stands right now. I'm not sure that Gus will take us into the gold standard for the future, but he will take us through the transition. What does that look like for UCF? And, when we're talking about, you mentioned the Dylan Gabriel drama, that's one quarterback for, as you said, potentially 3 years. Describe how that long-term view is the best road for UCF versus, to kind of taking the short-term view.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's when Gus is out on the road recruiting, and he's been on the road since yesterday, meeting with recruits and visiting with their families and stuff. I mean, I think people can feel comfortable and confident that, he's going to be around a few years. And, I think maybe it would have changed a little bit. No one could have foreseen back in February that UCF was going to be joining the Big 12 and being a Power 5 conference in a few months' time. And, I mean, maybe if UCF went in another direction, whether it was a Jeff Levy or something like that, they would have been able to have a better chance to keep him around long term. But, with you looking at the coaching carousel and what schools want, if they really want to hire somebody, they're going to open up their checkbooks. I mean, I guess we're out of that whole COVID.
Whoever thought that Lincoln Riley would have been leaving Oklahoma right as they're going into the SEC? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, Gus is that foundation. I mean, to kind of be that O'Leary figure. Not O'Leary in terms of personality and some of that kind of stuff, but you know what I mean. He's got a guy that is going to be committed to the program, and I'm never going to say never. I don't know what it would take for Gus to entertain other suitors if other schools would be interested in him. I know his buyout right now is $7 million, and it drops to $5 million after. Beginning, I think January 1st, 2022. I think it goes down a couple million every year after that. But it's just with the recruiting class UCF has right now, and I know nothing's signed yet, but with looking how they could potentially close and do well with transfers. I mean, it's hard to see any coach doing a better job of that right now than Gus is doing at UCF.
Right.
And Brandon, I'm sorry to jump in on this, but two things. One. Did George O'Leary ever have a version of the Waffle House after a win? And number two, when we're talking about the class, number 34 recruiting class right now, but understanding that about a quarter of our recruits are going to be transfers with the O-line and everything else that's linebacker weakness and all that, kind of speak to that, because I'm afraid that we see the number 34 ranking and we're like, all right, great, Gus smells on. But then when we start seeing the transfers that don't count and we start slipping a little bit, I'm a little afraid of how the fan base is going to respond to that. Can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, well, the first point, did O'Leary have a Waffle House? Actually, yeah. At least this happened once. Apparently, I don't know when it was, maybe 2012-ish, 13, UCF played some sort of road game where they must have gotten back real late, and maybe they had a short week to prepare. I don't know, whatever. But O'Leary, I don't know how he did it. I mean, he was old, and he would be up all night. I mean, just I don't know when he
lots of alcohol,
in there,
Irish whiskey.
4 or 5 in the morning. But someone said, here, college kids at the bars, and they have that International House of Pancakes at IHOP. It's kind of newer over there on University. Not too far from across the street from the newer Knight Library and stuff like that. You know where that is, the IHOP.
Yeah.
He was someone. I got a few texts one night. He's in here. And it was 3 a.m. or so. It was a 24-hour IHOP. He was in there eating something. And the guy, someone a day or two later, got back from team flight and needed to eat something because he was going right back to the office. Because he had to stay up all night and look at the film and get ready for next game or something like that. I don't know how often he did that, but I know he did that one night. And the other question was about recruiting ranks. I guess I'll work for a site that is one of the the first recruiting rankings that ever came out with rivals. But that's the thing. It's kind of hard to get to harp too much on that because, as you stated, I haven't seen. And I think the Rivals is working on it. I'm sure 24/7 is, just something that some sort of combined ranking that combines, high school recruits with transfer portal and kind of puts that in a quantifiable metric. It's very hard to do that because, how do you rank transfers and algorithms and all that? I don't. That's above my pay grade. I know. Not just Rivals, a lot of people are trying to figure out how do you do that because, just to say someone has the number one recruiting class anymore doesn't always necessarily, translate because, they could be other, schools that have, transfers coming in. And to me, knowing that it's the one-time transfer rule, it's almost more valuable if you get a proven player that can play at a high level in college and they got 3 years left, they're a younger player in college. That player to me is more valuable than some high school player. Well, maybe you think he's real good, but he hasn't proven anything. So, I think that player should be weighted more than a player who hasn't proved it. So, I don't know. All I know is that on paper, I know this will probably be UCF's best recruiting class ever. I know they're going to continue to recruit well under Gus Malzahn. And, that's all they're really about. I don't really, it's funny for someone like me to say that, but I don't really get too caught up in the, rank. It's kind of cool to talk about and say it, but there's so many things that go into that. It doesn't account for transfers and all that other kind of stuff. And look at the team this past year. Mostly a lot of these transfers made a big impact, and they never were part of these past recruiting classes.
Yeah. I would think that a guy with 1 year left as well wouldn't make
Right.
Yeah.
So
like
when you're looking to take a player, you kind of weigh that now. Do you want to waste a spot or use a spot on a guy that's only going to give you 1 year? I mean, maybe if you don't have any better options, you do it. I mean, that used to be how it was because it was grad transfers. Those were the transfers you got because, they didn't have to sit out. Well, now no one has to sit out. So that guy, that sophomore that's going to have, 3 years left, well, that guy's a lot more valuable than that senior who only has 1 more year.
Exactly. Or the grad transfer or whatever. I mean, grad transfers, if they're extremely good, obviously would have to have, a high rating or something like that that's proven. But, the guy with 3 years left would be high. 3 times more valuable in the long run. So, yeah, it's
and that might be a big reason why Dylan Gabriel's like, well, I'm not coming back. I don't want to get hurt, and I want to retain that year because that's just going to, maybe he knows where, Ole Miss or Tennessee or UCLA or wherever he ends up going, maybe knows where he's going anyway. But it's saying that he has 3 years left. That makes him more valuable to potential teams.
Right. Exactly. Speaking of the recruiting class, can you give us any updates on that? Anybody that you think, I don't know, maybe is like on the fence or anything that maybe has?
Well, right now it's obviously UCF has a group of commits that most of them they've had since the summer. I know recently they've gotten Jordan McDonald, the running back from Georgia. The Henderson twins from Stanford are in the fold. I think right now it's just kind of on transfer portal watch, and it's kind of hard to predict, and it's kind of it's harder in a sense to kind of really be in tune without having really good sources that kind of might clue you in various levels to kind of say, hey, this guy might be looking at these schools or whatever, because most transfers aren't going to be broadcasting it or doing interviews. Like some of these kids in high school, they love the attention and the publicity, and they're, oh, here's my top 5, and here's photos from my visit and stuff like that. Well, a lot of transfers just, they just kind of go into silent mode, and they just kind of talk with schools on their own, and kind of then you don't really know anything until they actually put it out there that they're committing to a school. So it'll be kind of interesting to kind of track this stuff. But one recruit I know they're still working on, high school guys, Xavier Townsend. He's from the same high school over in Tampa as a commitment. TJ Bullard, he's committed to Iowa State right now. They're working on him quite a bit. I know they're still looking for another running back to pair with Jordan McDonald in this class, and that's a potential flip target. That would potentially flip to UCF. That's one high school guy I know that they're highly in on it. I think right now the focus is really just going to be on getting on some of these transfers.
Yeah, and the transfers don't. From what I understand, there's no time limit or range that they can transfer. Right? Obviously, they have to be. I mean, they don't even have to be done with their season. They can go into the portal mid-season.
Yeah, they can. There'll be different waves. I mean, UCF probably has, what I was told, there's about 10 spots left, and majority of that is going to be transfers or potentially junior college players. And, you're going to be looking for guys, right now that can enroll in January. And, maybe you save some spots because then there'll be people that will enter the transfer portal, say, this upcoming spring. Maybe they go through spring ball and they don't like their spot or
Is
whatever.
Is there a rule
they get
on
homesick.
that, though, as to, do they have to enroll in January, or do they have to be enrolling for the summer A? Is there any rule?
Well, yeah, I mean, it just kind of goes with the normal enrollment timelines that, there usually are. I mean, anyone can hit the portal at any time, but I mean, if you're a college football player, that's why, if you're looking to make a move now, you put your name in the portal right now. I mean, you do it this week, most likely, if you're considering it, because that way you can potentially get picked up and be enrolled at a new school in January. And that's kind of when they talk about, when guys came in and said, oh, it was remarkable. They didn't have a coach for a month or, quite that long, but they didn't have a coach for a while, and no one hit the transfer portal. But I mean, it was kind of pointless to hit the transfer portal for if you were a UCF player back in February before you knew who the coach was going to be, because you're not going anywhere anyway. Your semester just started. I mean, it made no sense. I mean, you weren't going to be the next opportunity you could have, had to move to a new school would have been a summer school. So it really made no sense to go in the portal. So yeah, there'll be people in the portal this month, and the next wave will probably be, late spring, early summer. I think the deadline, I think it was different this past year. It might be, is it May 1st or June 1st? There is a deadline, though, for players. If they want to be eligible for the following year, they have to be in the portal by a certain date. Like, they don't want guys, like, hitting the portal, like, in August and then moving around and then joining a new school. They kind of have a deadline on that. It might be May 1st. I haven't
that's
looked at that
good
in a while.
Yeah, that's good if they do have some kind of a deadline. I mean, there's so much of this stuff that's like, it's kind of weird because we haven't heard a lot of rules about
yes,
things.
It is May 1st. It is May 1st.
Okay. Well, that's interesting to know. Yeah. Are we expecting most of these guys that are in the class to join in December? Because that's coming up pretty quick. That's like just in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if they've been committed, they should be signing, December 15th. Obviously, with so much turnover in coaching, just nationally, it'll be interesting to see. Everyone's going to be scrambling to recruit, and UCF has some really good players in their class. So, could some of these guys be targets? Like, I know Quan Lee's from Gainesville, Billy Napier at Florida. Could maybe he's get on Florida's radar here in a couple of weeks. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Right.
There's some things to consider now, especially with some of these coaches moving around. So, I don't know that anyone's, a flip candidate or flip watcher. I know with UCF, I think they feel pretty good about everybody, but you never know until they sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, and it's coming up quick. I think it's December 12th, right, or something like that.
I think it's the 15th.
15th this year. Okay.
This year, yeah.
Okay, we're not going to take any more of your time. Just one last thing. Just your overall synopsis of the season that was, the regular season that was, because it was just odd. It was one of the weirdest seasons I've ever seen. But
yeah, it was good to have a season in a sense, just because last year just seemed so weird. It was like empty stadiums and not really going to road games other than the USF game, and just after that, it was just kind of good just to kind of feel a sense of normalcy of full stadiums and interviews in person and going to road games. So that part of it was fun for me at least. It just once you kind of got used to that, just with the injuries. I mean, I was thinking, UCF was going to compete for the conference. I don't know if they were, I don't know if a healthy UCF beats Cincinnati. I mean, maybe not, but I was thinking, potentially, UCF could, be in that conference championship game and be in contention to be in a conference championship game, maybe rematch with Cincinnati. That obviously went by the wayside with that loss to Navy, that kind of, precluding. Of course, Houston ended up not losing at all because they don't have to play Cincinnati or UCF. So that might have been tough to get to that point. But, just kind of itching, just filling everybody out, kind of, getting to know Gus a little bit and kind of what his tendencies are, and kind of, how he is in interviews and press conferences. And it's a little bit different kind of formats from maybe past regimes and in terms of player interviews and stuff like that. But, it was still fun. I mean, it was for UCF. I think it was a successful year. I mean, I think the only game I think you really feel like you'd like to have back is that Navy game. I mean, SMU was, a good team, and UCF was wrought with injuries. I mean, it is what it is. Didn't play. Kind of things fell apart there after the first half, but Cincinnati is Cincinnati, and that Louisville game could have gone either way, and whatever happened. But it was still a good year, and I think for a lot of people, I think just knowing you're going to the Big 12 and you're going to the Power 5, that kind of changes. I think for some people, you don't really maybe get as angry or anxious, or what I mean, just kind of like, in years past it was always about, oh my gosh, conference realignment, you got to keep winning at a high level, you got to do whatever it takes to impress those other leagues so you get invited, and that's why it was so important to kind of keep things rolling, that undefeated streak. But now that you kind of where your future is, I mean, there's still some questions about future TV contract with the Big 12 and stuff. But I mean, I think it kind of takes the anxiety away.
Absolutely.
Just when there's a result or a game that maybe doesn't go your way, well, you're going to the Big 12. It'll be all right. You're going to recruit at a higher level. You're going to be, have easier access to the playoff. We'll see what it ends up being. It'll be 12 teams, I guess, at some point. Will there be maybe an automatic bid for Big 12? That's what it looks like, which is great news. Hopefully it's for 2023. So just having that kind of in your back pocket, I think has made this season a little bit more, enjoyable. Maybe that's not the right word, but just, even things didn't go the way you wanted at times. I think just knowing that's going to be coming in a couple of years just kind of makes things a lot better.
Exactly. All right, man. Thank you so much. I know it was kind of late notice for this today and all that stuff, but I greatly appreciate it. We always love having you on. You are
no
a
problem.
wealth of information.
Talking to you guys.
I told somebody today on Twitter that was asking for a source of what somebody said, and they said that they heard it in the dungeon. I said, if you know, you know. If you don't, you should. Here, go to this website and pay the freaking $99 because it's well worth it, my friend. You do an incredible job, and you have helped us tremendously through this, and I love having you on here anytime we have a chance.
And from my side, let me say this about that, Brandon. Not only is it about the site, but honestly, I mentioned this while we were in the break, but before we started this, but Brandon is a person who will, any type of issue, he will help you 100%. He's 100% bought into UCF and UCF sports. He's been around UCF for literally as long as I have and longer, which, considering that we're about the same age, says a lot for Brandon. This is the guy who's taking photos at the basketball game while at the same time texting, or not texting, but messaging back to the folks at the dungeon to give them updated notes as he becomes aware of information. So, I've been a member of the dungeon for a very, very long time. And the reason for that is not, granted, I've met some great people there. And that's definitely an advantage of being there. In fact, my life coach I met through the dungeon. There's some great people there, but honestly, Brandon, what he does and the dedication that he has to UCF sports far surpasses mine. I wish that I could say that I was as passionate about UCF sports as Brandon has been, and he's created relationships with the mainstays of at UCF that allows him to give you an unprecedented viewing point into UCF sports and the individuals that are a part of it and part of that history. So, I know this sounds like a commercial that's not meant to be, but honestly, let me say this way: the dedication that you have shown, the information that you can provide based on the relationships that you have built, I definitely recommend, paying the $99. I know that sounds strange and it's not a commercial, but Brandon is truly a UCF sports fan first. He's the most dedicated person that I've ever met at UCF. And, I appreciate the work that he has done, and he's kept me in the loop and kept me satisfied since 1999. I was a member before I became a dungeon member. Once I became a dungeon member, I truly understood the value that he brings and those relationships that he has built over the years. So, I don't mean for this to sound like a commercial, because it's not, but I know Brandon personally and I know who he is. And if you're a UCF sports fan, whether you know him personally or you connect with him through his website, it is well worth it. So thank you, Brandon, for everything that you've done.
Thank you very much, Roger. I got to tear it up a little bit listening to that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say before that. But anyway, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. I don't even think you have to tell people what you do on this thing anymore, because I think everybody that listens to this knows about the dungeon. So if they don't, that's their own problem. I guess.
Exactly, 100%. And Brandon, I don't mean to make you tear up, but I've known you for a very long time, and you're always on the sideline. You're in whatever section that you need to be to get the shot. And I, as a fan, as someone who shares these memories with my children and who's been invested since day one and pays not only for the season tickets, but gives of my own wealth back because I believe in this university. I think that it pales in retrospect to what you have done for UCF and UCF fans. So again, you've been there since day one. I appreciate what you've done, and I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate who you are. So thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It really means a lot.
All righty, man. We will talk to you next time, hopefully fairly quickly. I appreciate everything. Have a good evening.
All right, guys. Thanks. I'll talk to you sometime soon.
All right. Take it easy.
Time now to check out the rest of the scores around the American. Number 4 Cincinnati capped off a perfect regular season, downing East Carolina 35-13. Their AAC championship game opponent Houston rolled to an out-of-conference 45-17 romp over UConn. Memphis becomes bowl eligible with a 33-28 victory over Tulane. Tulsa also bowl eligible as they beat SMU 34-31. The Mustangs will have a new coach. As Sonny Dykes leaves for the TCU job, former offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley returns from the same role at Miami to take over for Dykes. And Navy closes out the regular season with a 38-14 win over Temple. The Owls lose 7 in a row to finish. Navy has one more game left, their annual clash with Army on December 11th. I'm Jeff Allen. We'll review the week that was and preview the AAC championship battle between Houston and Cincinnati with Sam and Dustin from the Scott and Holman podcast on this week's AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
All right, there was some basketball played this weekend as well, and there's basketball coming up later this week. Roger, you were at the basketball game, I guess? You got to see the Oklahoma Sooners come in and win by 3 points?
I did. I hate that you say it that way. It was a phenomenal game, honestly.
They won by 3 points. That's just the bottom
line. They 100% did. Unfortunately, I mean, there was 11 seconds left. We had a chance to tie. We got to the point where we were passing the rock around the arc. We could not find an open 3-point play. So we went inside. We drove. Unfortunately, didn't make the basket. However, all that being said, let me make 3 points. One, Big 12 basketball is typically number 1 or number 2 in the entire country. Number 2, the team did exceptionally well in dealing with what was given to them in the last 20 minutes. They never gave up. They were not outclassed. Looking back, right? So we talk to Ben Stout all the time. If you look at Ben Stout's basketball team versus the basketball team that's out there right now, the fact that we're already competing with Oklahoma, with the team that we have today, bodes well for us in the future. Perry did well. Darren Green did well. Threes all over the place. I mean, they were just making it rain, to be honest with you. Where we kind of faltered was a place that we've done really, really well in the past. We only averaged 66% from the 3-point line. That's been a strength for us this year. We've averaged 90%. Unfortunately, Perry missed 2 critical free throws. But other than that, the defense was solid. We had 21 versus 15 defensive rebounds, so we did better there. We had 16 versus 15 assists for us, so they didn't outclass us there. We did well on the glass. Basically, they did better on 54.5% from inside the arc. We shot 45% from inside the arc and 45.8%, so almost 46% from the 3 versus their 35.3. In essence, what I'm trying to say is we were very evenly matched. It was a great game. It was back and forth. There was no real large leads except for a 10-point lead, which we came back from with tough defense. Honestly, the difference between this game was, free throws, number 1. Number 2, unforced turnovers. So turnovers didn't look really bad. If you look at the, gosh, I can't think of the word, but if you look at the stats from the game, however, if you were at the game, there were just a lot of unforced errors or unforced turnovers that really, if we had not done that, we would have been able to put our foot on the jugular, and we were never able to do that throughout the entire game.
So what you're saying is the better team won.
I wouldn't even say that.
Well, they obviously played better.
No, if both teams, no, they just played differently. We played to our strength, which was the 3-ball. Darren Green Jr. and Darius Perry did an excellent job beyond the arc. They played a different brand of basketball, and the big thing was number 35. I don't remember what his name was. He had a brother that played on there as well. If you look at it from a technical perspective, 35, what Oklahoma was doing was they were creating mismatches with our team. They had a little more when they were playing. We played small ball when they were playing large ball. What I mean by that is they had multiple players that were 6'10" or above on the floor. And basically what was happening was 35 was switching, and then they would get an advantage because we'd have a 6'3", 6'4" player, maybe a 6'6" player on a 6'10" player. And, they just did a really good job passing the ball and getting it into the paint and allowing that person to score. That was the main difference with the game. When you're looking at scheme or conceptually, that was the differentiator because honestly, we did it in different ways. But the game was very evenly matched. We did it with the 3-ball. They did it inside the paint. Had we done a little bit better there, we had foul trouble early for CJ Walker. He had 3 fouls before the half, and some stupid mistakes. I mean, it looked like, honestly, that they were a little nervous playing Oklahoma. The crowd played well, but to their credit, they were in it the entire game, and they had 11 seconds to tie the game, which in basketball is an eternity. I would say that moving screens, Big 12 officials, since you guys were there, this is something you guys will look forward to. Unfortunately, is there were moving screens by Oklahoma all over the place that were not called. That being said, tight game, great turnovers. I wish they would have played the press a little bit earlier. We rebounded well. It was just a really, really good game, and unfortunately, we ended up on the losing end of it.
All right. Next up for UCF is Auburn at Auburn on Wednesday, 8 p.m. The ESPN matchup predictor right now does not have it in good favor for UCF. They have Auburn 77.8% chance to win, UCF 22.2% chance to win. So hopefully that changes, and that is absolutely the wrong calculation by them. But we will talk about that next week for sure. All right, Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week coming up, and then news and notes, and we'll be out of here. Welcome to the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Visit TijuanaFlats.com for takeout or delivery, or visit your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. All right, Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. I'm looking forward to my my normal Tuesday night Tijuana Flats dinner tomorrow and today, if you're hearing this, probably Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. So we're going back to actually doing hot takes on this now that football is pretty much over. We'll probably have a score prediction for whatever bowl game we're in, but for the most part, this is coming back to an actual hot take. So, Roger, go ahead.
Well, for me, unfortunately, I had a 44-7 score that did not work out in our favor, although they only scored 13. Our defense held up their part. Unfortunately, the offense did not. However, for this week's Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week, Thomas Castellanos will be UCF's starting quarterback by the 3rd game of next year. The reason I say that is that Gus does prefer a dual threat quarterback. Looking at the tape between the two contenders, which for me is Mikey Keene versus Castellanos, now that DG is out, I think that, Castellanos has the edge as far as a dual threat is concerned, but the wild card, obviously, is the transfer portal. So that is my Tijuana Flats hot take of the week.
Okay, I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree with you on this. My Tijuana Flats hot take of the week is that we will get a transfer quarterback, and it's going to be somebody good, and it's all up in the air. Who knows who the quarterback's going to be, because I don't think it's going to be either one of those guys if we get somebody really good in the transfer portal. So that's mine. I know it's general, but it's supposed to be. So, all right, next news and notes. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, there's only one, so I guess it's mine. UCF volleyball finished the season 26-6, are now sole winners of the conference championship for the fourth straight year. After defeating Houston 3-2, they will be going to the NCAA tournament again this year. They ranked 25th in the NCAA RPI and oddly are being left out of the coaches poll. The team will play Pepperdine in round 1 and possibly UCLA in round 2. All right.
Congratulations. I mean, 4 straight season. That's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely huge. I love it. All right, guys, it is super late. And I'm glad that this show took time, but this has been Knightline 271. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps. Go Knights!
Charge on.
To the field, with our spirits we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our crown.